Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. It's my pleasure to introduce Louise Berglund to present Conquering Neo4j errors. GQL status codes to the rescue. Over to you.
Thank you. Have you ever encountered error in Neo4j that was confusing or a bit unclear, or just them right wrong? Then this is the session for you. My name is Louise Berglund. I've been working at Neo4j as a developer for 8 years, and today I will talk a little bit about our new error framework. So for the longest time, helping users to have good error messages in Neo4j has been a bit of a catch-22 for us developers, because we always have some users who ask for better clarity. Maybe they want some error message to be rephrased, to be clearer, to contain more detail, etc. But then I also have users that ask for more of stability, because they have application or tool or similar that is dependent of the exact phrasing of the error message. So maybe they have a Neo4j driver where they get an error and they parse that in a catch to do some certain logic, or they parse error messages for the query log. And this user says you can definitely not change it. It's a breaking change, just like any surface in Neo4j. So this is a bit of a struggle, because of course we want to help both these groups. So internally we started to think, what if there is a way to achieve both the clarity and the stability? And this is one of the points on which we made our new error project, which have been a multiple year cross-team project. And to get more of a new error framework. But first, before I go into the new things, I will take a step back and show you an example. So everyone needs better errors, even Batman. So in this example, Batman is taking his Batmobile. He's going from Gotham, where he's situated, to Malmö in Sweden, where I'm situated. Batman has become a bit more modern recently, so of course he has the electric car, but then needs to charge. So he needs to do some charging stops on the way, and he cannot take any road that is longer than 5 hours because of this, because then he runs out of battery. So we have this map with some cities. As you can see, this is clearly a graph problem. And Batman decides therefore to use Neo4j to try to find his way. Unfortunately, Batman is not as good at Cypher as he is at fighting crimes. So his first Cypher query attempt is a bit feeble. He tries something like this. He tries to match the different towns and try to write some sort of all shortest path, because he wants to find the best path. And he knows I need to put something with this travel time limitation there. When he runs this query on an old version of Neo4j, he gets the following error messages, which is not super helpful. I would say it has several problems. It leaks some internal information, which is both confusing for the user and might be a security problem or similar for us. So here we have something which we have failed to stringify. So we say that the all shortest path contains properties, and then we throw around words like map expression and signed decimal integer literal and other things which are like our internal class names that the user don't know what it is. It's also very vague, I would say, because it says this is currently not supported. And is it just this specific weird property or all properties? And does currently mean it's gonna be supported soon or not? I would say this is not super clear. So we have introduced a new GQL-compliant error system. I think most of you know that GQL is a standard for database languages, just like SQL. The first ISO standards in SQL, and Cypher, our language, is an implementation of GQL. But GQL also has something to say about how to handle errors and how to give information to user, which is a bit broader than just the Cypher query language in this case. And so we have tried to come up with a new error system that both fulfills these things from GQL and also solves this tension between stability and clarity that I talked about before. Most of this error system was introduced in Neo4j 525 or 526 LTS. However, we have continued porting over our vast amount of errors since then. So I would say it's kind of fully in use with everything in the new system from 2025 or 4 or 5, sometimes this spring. It covers errors, but it also covers notifications. So, for example, performance information or deprecation warnings and this sort of things, and also actually successful outcomes, which we'll see an example of later. For each query, you will get one or multiple GQL status objects, and these have 4 parts. So there is a GQL status code, which is a 5-digit or 5-character long alphanumeric code. And this is kind of the stability part that you can depend on. There's also a status description, which is more text and for human consumption, and is the thing that we can improve over time without breaking for anyone and make as clear as possible. Then we have a diagnostic record. This is more or less a map with some metadata. Currently, we use it for the position of errors, for classification, like if something is a database error, transient, or client error, but we might use it for more things in the future. We also have something called the cause, which is optional, so some errors have it and some does not. And this cause is similar to causes in, for example, Java or other programming languages. So it creates kind of stack trace sort of structure where you can have one error which is dependent on another error or was caused by another error, which in turn is caused by a third error. So it gives you some more structured information. So now Batman decides to upgrade his database so he can use this new error system. And here I have Neo4j desktop version 2 with a very recent database. So if I run the same query here, I will see that I get the error in the new error system, which hopefully is a bit clearer. As we have introduced the new error system, we have also gone through and improved all our error messages, which have been a huge work helped by many people internally. So you can see here the GQL status codes that I mentioned. So we have 42001 and 42056. In query and other tools, we have decided to have the stack trace kind of upside down. So 42 and 56 is the cause in this case. And this is because usually the cause contains the most detail, while the upper error might be more generic. So we thought we will give you the most detailed and useful information first, and then you can open here with show more if you want to see the whole thing. Most errors have 2 levels like this. Some might have 1 or 3 or 4, usually not more than that. And we can see now that the text mentions that this is a syntax error, unsupported use of properties, and it's a little bit more clear that properties are not supported at all in the shortest path function. So here we can see the different parts that we have. Each GQL-status consists of a class and a subclass. The class is the two first digits. In this case, it's 42 for both these errors, which means it's a syntax error or something with access rule violations. So you don't have permission to do something. And then we have the subclass, which are the three rest of the letters, in this case, M56. This provides a little bit more hierarchy. So for example, if you want to do something special for all syntax errors or all procedure errors or all data exception or similar, you can look for just the class. Then in the status description, the text, we have a condition. And you can see for both this, it's syntax error or access rule violation. And this is because the condition is just a textual representation of the class, really. So this is what 42 means in text. Similarly, we have the subcondition, which is a short textual representation of the subclass. So M56 in the context of 42 means unsupported use of properties. This is often quite short and summarized. So we also have an additional message with more details, which is the 2 lines below. And this part can also include parameters. So it can be more specific and contain like your invalid input or parts of your database settings or similar. Yes, so now Batman goes and reads in the Cypher manual about properties and all sorts of path. And he comes up with a new query, which uses the newer all shorter syntax, where you actually can have proper predicates like this. If we now go back and run this query instead, we will see that it didn't give any errors, but we also didn't get a result. And to know why, you can inspect the notifications. We had notifications already before, but now they are also part of this new system and are a bit more visible in many of our tools compared to before. So here we can see quite clearly the things that start with 01 are warnings, so a bit more severe. And in this case, the label town does not exist in the database. So it asks us to verify that. And looking at this, Batman realizes that these places were actually called city and not town. Similarly, we have a property key that doesn't exist because of a typo. It should be name, of course, and not num. And then towards the end, we have things which start with 03 or 00, which are more informational thing. In this case, it's kind of a performance hint, but as the map is so small, Batman doesn't have to really care about that. So with this, he can rewrite his query again and change it to city and so on. And if you run this query, we can see that we got the result, which you here see in graph form. If you go back to the slides, we can see the same result as a picture. And Batman now knows to drive from Gotham to Malmö. He needs to drive either through Atlantis and Hogsmeade or through Springfield and Rivendell. So now this is all well and good, but now you might wonder how this looks in more of an application situation. Usually you use query maybe more for like prototyping or so. So I have set up a small other demo with the driver. And of course, this is a toy example, but it gives you a little bit of a feel, hopefully, for how this looks with drivers. So I use the Java driver. Here I have the same database in the background as I had in query. I've also put up a constraint on the city nodes, which says that the city name needs to be a key. So that means it needs to exist. All cities have to have a name and it needs to be unique. I don't want to create have a query here which tries to create a new city named London. If I run this query, you will see that I get not the normal error, but new cities must have a name. And this is because I have some custom error handling here. So this is sort of the old error that someone that required stability would have. And then you would write something like, I catch an Neo4j exception from the driver. And if the message contains something with must have property, it's probably because our constraint failed. So then we want to print out this line. As I said, this is not super stable anymore. It has the flaw that if someone realized this text is slightly wrong and want to fix it as a bug fix, for example, then this wouldn't work anymore. So let's see if we can update this to the new error system. So I copy this must have a property. And then I will go to Google. And here we have a utility tool called Error Utility or Error Migration. It's available on Neo4j Labs. So you can all use it if you want to update your application. We paste in must have a property. And we can see, depending on a little bit how we do it, that we get one or several results. This is kind of a fuzzy AI search. So it tries to find similar error messages that we know we have in our database. In this case, we know it's a constraint on the node. So we take the first one here. And if you scroll down, you can see that this error message corresponds to the new GQL-STATUS code 22N77. And you can also do searches the other way around and so on. So if we go back, we can change this e.getMessage.contains and use a newer method on the Java driver. There are similar methods on the other drivers too. So you can do e.contains GQL-STATUS, and then we post in 22 and 77. And if you run it again, we can see that it still works. We can also, of course, fix our thing so that it's called name instead. And run it. Right, I think maybe I already have a London node now. Let's call it London 2. So then we can see that now we didn't get into the catch, but we get further down the code and print out the equal info. And in this case, we can see that the equal status, now it was a successful query, and we can see equal status with zeros and a 1 here. And these are one of the ones we have for successful errors. So we have these 3 for successful cases, more or less. So there are 3, and this is part of the equal standard that they have 3 different sort of successful results. So we have just zeros, that's just a successful completion. And this you would get if you run a query like match all cities and return them. So this is any query that runs through without errors and gives a result back with the result rows. In our case, we instead got a 00001 successful completion omitted result. So these are queries that didn't give a result, but also wasn't expected to because we didn't have a return. In this case, we had just a create. And then we have the case no data with 02. And this is if you run, let's say, match query or similar, something where you expect to have return rows, but you didn't get back any rows, but also no errors. So these are the 3 different codes you can get on success. So now if we go back to the demo, we also have another query to try to remove the constraint. We don't want it anymore. If we run this, it will also fail. And the error here will tell us that we got GQL-STATUS 50 and 10 with the cause 22 and BC. Index belongs to a constraint and index drop failed. So what can we do if we want to know even more about this? We can go to Google, I guess, and try to put in a new tab in the search window, this code 22 and BC. And then the first hit you get is actually the correct one. So this is for our new error docs manual. So we now have introduced a more proper manual for error handling. And this has some sections which just explain everything and the system and the things I've gone through today. But it also have one page for each single code. Some of these pages are fairly sparse at the moment because there is so much. But our aim is that over time, these pages should be filled in with things like different scenarios where you can get this error, possible solutions, examples, and more info, so that you can use it when you get errors and actually help you debug and so on. So in this case, for 22 MBC, we have written a little bit. So we have the status description. We have a scenario that this error code is used when the user tries to drop an index that belongs to a constraint. And the solution in this case is to try to drop the constraint instead of the index. So here, of course, the reason was that we wrote drop index city instead of drop constraint city. In the demo, I have shown you how the error system looks if you have a query sort of workspace as Batman had, or how it looks with the Java driver. You can also find it in the third place, which is the query log if you run in JSON format. There was an entry before which just had the error message, which was called failure reason. It's still there, but since in May it's deprecated. Instead, since 5/25, so for a year now, roughly, we have a new error info entry. Since it's the JSON format query log, everything is maps. So you can see here that the error info is kind of a structure where you can see the GQL-STATUS, the status description, classifications, and any causes. And if there were multiple causes, this would be printed out in the same kind of wrapped way. So you can get all the information in there as well. So to go back from a bit to the beginning of the presentation, we talked about this catch-22 of good error messages, that it's hard to have an error message that both provides clarity and stability. But with this new system, we have both. So we have the status descriptions for you people to read, and it's just for human consumption. So if you find the status description that you think is not perfect, you can report it to us and we can improve it. And then we have the GQL-STATUS, which should be the stable interface that you can use to rely on. I have some links for some of the things I've shown today. So we have the documentation manual, the migrator tool. We have some documentation for error handling with the Java driver. There are similar docs for other drivers as well. And I also written an Neo4j blog post that was posted this Monday on the same topic that you can read. Yes, let's then go to the chat and see if anyone have written any questions. And you can also post more questions now if you have any. People liking Batman? I think it's mostly encouraging comment, which I also like, but no questions as far as I can see. Yes, thank you, Sasha. Yes, exactly. The status description you shouldn't insert on in tools is for you as a user to read and understand what is wrong. Okay. Thank you so much for coming to my session, and enjoy the rest of your day here at Notes.